Hi, welcome to this video. We're going to talk a little bit about pen machines. Now, there are many different makes of pen machines. So the particular style which is quite common for you to buy from your supplier is discussed here, but there are other designs, more sophisticated designs, which don't work exactly the same as this one. So I hope you enjoy this information on how they actually operate and what you can do if you're a fan of riding the tube as opposed to riding the needle. How will you be able to rectify the problem that you would have using a pen machine? Okay, so this is what a standard hybrid machine looks like. So these are fairly low-cost machines, and you should be able to buy one of these on Wish, Amazon, eBay, AliExpress, or any other platform that serves your area. Okay, so let's just have a look at how the machine operates. So hopefully you can see this nicely. I've taken the machine apart and given you a bit of an overview of what's going on. Okay, so you have a front piece. This piece is turned in order to adjust the needle length. Okay, so that's really cool. So you have that. And the other alternative that you have with the machine is you have a power supply with a variable voltage. So you can turn the voltage up and down. Okay, so just briefly, the voltage up and down allows you to work at a faster pace or provide a dot effect or whatever. Okay, so line work would be done at a higher voltage and shading would be done at a lower voltage. So we're not going to talk about that because this is not instruction on how to do tattoos, but a little bit of a discussion about the pen machine. Okay, so the next piece we have is the mechanism which fires the cartridge needle forward and back. Okay, so the pen machine doesn't use standard tattoo needles, but uses a cartridge. So what we've got here is a cut open piece, which shows you a little bit of what goes on inside. Okay, so we won't talk about the motor just yet. We're just looking at this component, and this is what the component looks like if you look inside here. So what you'll find inside the machine is a bit of Vaseline going on there. You'll see there's a bit of a pin, and it's on the one side. Okay, so there's a round disc on the other side of this, and there's a pin. So now if you have a look here, it shows this disc, and there's this pin, right, which is pressed by the machine. And then when this pin, which is off on the side, gets pressed, this shaft gets pressed forward. This, as it goes forward, presses the back of the needle, which puts the needle out the front of the machine for you to tattoo. Okay, so that's pretty straightforward. If you have a machine that when you open this segment, so you take both of these two pieces off and you look inside, you'll see a little pin there. Okay, also if your machine looks a bit like this and it has a round thing on it, then this is how it will be. Okay, there are a couple of different options as manufacturers move forward, and this may change ever so slightly. Okay, so here what we have is a interesting arrangement. So the electrical cable goes inside here. We have an electric motor, and if you buy a cheap machine, you're going to get a very cheap motor. And the more expensive machines, the casing and all that's all the same, but what you're going to do is you're going to get a better engineered motor. Perhaps you'll have a Japanese motor, you may have a German motor inside of here, and then it has a shaft because the motor just turns. Now what you have on the end here is quite a sophisticated little gadget. So you've got a disc with some bumps on it, which you may think actually fires the needle, but that is not true. And what you'll find is that there's a shaft sticking out, and this shaft goes into a bearing. So you have a offset drilled through this center of the bearing, and then you have this outer disc. Now when the machine is running, you may think that the disc rotates, but it doesn't. Okay, so what happens is that the disc wobbles, Okay, so this disc, when the machine is running, it actually goes like that. Okay, it doesn't turn. If it does turn, it will become damaged very, very quickly, because these are nylon discs, and you've got these bumps on them. That just means you can put the machine together any way you like, and it will grab and work. Okay, so the disc is not spinning inside. So any diagrams you may see on the internet where it shows this follower going up and down on the bumps, that's just not true. Doesn't work like that at all. The disc does not turn. And if you have a look at it, you'll see it has a bearing on the inside. So when the motor is running, you can actually physically hold the disc stationary while the motor is running. Okay, so the inside piece turns and the disc does not. Okay, so here what we have is we have a very, very basic animation. And what you can see here is that when the motor is busy running, when it runs, this disc flops up and down. This pushes this forward and back, as you can see, and then you can see the needles going forward and back. So this is called riding the needle. At all times, the needle is sticking outside of the tube. Okay, so the needle is out at all times, and the needle goes forward and back outside of the tip. That means that when you're dipping, you have to be really careful not to damage the needle. Okay, so this is a preferred method by many thousands of tattoo artists the world over. And obviously, if you self-taught and you looked at the videos on the internet, you would have seen that everybody in programs like Inkmaster and so on like to ride the needle. So this is a specific way of doing, but for the beginner this is extremely dangerous because you're either going to go too light and then the tattoo will not come out, or what's going to happen is you are going to go too deep and cause blowout. Now, you don't want to cause blowout on a customer because it can't be fixed. Okay, so this method is you just put in the needle into the machine and you run it, and that's riding the needle. In this video, what we're going to discuss is riding the tube. Now, riding the tube is what was passed on to all tattoo artists via the Master Apprenticeship Program. Okay, so this is a skill that we were trained to do in order to control depth. So all professional tattoo artists would control depth, and the entire tattoo would have the ink in the skin at approximately 1 millimeter deep into the skin. Okay, so that was quite important that we were trained in this way, and this is how our industry evolved. Okay, so riding the tube is a technique where the needle is set to a point where it protrudes from the tattoo machine exactly 1 millimeter. That means you can never ever tattoo deeper than that. So that is what we are looking at with riding the tube. Okay, so let's see how the machine works, and so we can see what the problem is trying to set the machine to do this. Okay, so the machine is busy running here, as you can see, but now we've screwed out the front so that the machine only allows the needle out 1 millimeter. Now what happens now is when the machine is operating, just like the previous video, you'll notice a gap developing over here. Okay, so what happens is in the stroke, the needle disengages from the motor. If the needle disengages from the motor, you will get a bit of a chatter begin to happen on the needle, because the machine will lose the needle, pick the needle up, lose the needle, pick the needle up, and this whole thing will provide a very erratic tattoo, and in many cases it won't work at all. So this is bad. We need to have a solution. How do we stop this? If we're going to use a needle that was designed for hanging the needle, how are we going to run on the tube when the needle is a problem? Okay, so when you take a standard needle cartridge out of its packet and you push it in and turn so it locks into your pen machine, the needle itself is designed to run by hanging the needle. It comes right out as much as 5 millimeters out the end. Okay, so we've got this needle which is like hanging out of the machine. The machine has a very large stroke, not like a coil machine which you can bring right down to 1 or 1.2 millimeter stroke. So your coil machine will be somewhere between 3 and 7 millimeter stroke depending on the design. So you've got this very, very long stroke, and most of the time the needle is not in the skin. Okay, so which is quite nice if you're doing shading. It's really terrible if you're looking to do good line work. Okay, so the problem that we have is that the rear of the cartridge machine, this piece here where the actual plunger presses, this piece here is very long. Okay, so in order for us, if you want to use a pen machine and go on the tube, what you need to do is you need to make this shorter, because if your pen machine is running and you put the power on, press your pedal and listen to the machine, as you adjust the pen machine to change the length so that the length becomes shorter, then you'll find that the sound changes. So when the needle's hanging right out, the machine is running nicely. As you adjust it to make the needle shorter and shorter, at a point when the needle is about 3 millimeters out, you'll hear this change. Now the moment this change happens, this is the point where the needle disengages from the machine. Okay, and one of the important things is, I'm sure if you've got a pen machine and you've pressed this at the back, you'll notice that it's got quite a strong spring in it. You need to push quite hard. The machine itself requires that tension to make the machine work properly. The machine needs back pressure onto the disc. Okay, so that's very, very important to stop slip on the disc, because if you get slip on the disc, it will wear the plastic away. Okay, so we don't want that. So as you turn the needle away from the machine, you'll get to a point where it will engage, disengage, engage, disengage, and you set your machine at about 1.5 millimeters. Okay, when you get to that point, you're now running into trouble. Your machine is not good, and if you keep doing that, your machine may even burn out or become damaged. Okay, so the simple solution is that you take a nail clipper, and that would be the bigger one, not like fingers, like the toe one, so you've got a bit of a bigger gap, because this is around about 2 millimeters in diameter. And most nail clippers, it's a little bit of a tight fit, but you can put the nail clipper on really, really nicely onto the back and then just clip. And it takes it off clean on the back, and you should take off somewhere between 1 and 2 millimeters off of the end. So now your cartridge looks like this, and this is a little bit short. Rather take off a little piece, and if that's no good, take another piece. Now what happens is, you take this needle and you put it into your machine, and now you'll find that the machine is engaged and you have a much bigger range of adjustment. So when you turn the pen machine, you can turn it, make it longer, you can make it shorter, and when you do that, you'll find you well within the range of the machine, and at no point does it make a strange sound as you've disengaged from the drive of the motor. I hope this has been made it a bit clearer to you. If you have this type of pen, there's nothing wrong with it. They're really, really great machines, and they do work for quite a number of months. Normally around about a year, we found they start to get a bit tight. But obviously it all depends. If you're doing 1 or 2 tattoos a week, they're going to last for a very long time. And if you're doing 10 tattoos a day, then you're going to find that it's not going to last very long. Okay, so that gives you a good idea of the overall workings, and hopefully that will improve the performance of your tattoos.